I'm Ava Mitchell, and this is the story of how I discovered that sometimes, the people closest to you, your own family, can turn out to be your toughest adversaries, especially in business. For a decade, I poured every ounce of my energy into our small family-run tech company, transforming it from a struggling startup into a $50 million enterprise. But success has a way of revealing the darkest sides of people, even those who are supposed to support you. I remember how it all started. Our family business began as a tiny computer repair shop in a strip mall, barely scraping by. My dad had started it 20 years ago, and despite its struggles, it was his pride and joy. My sister Lauren was always the golden child. Straight A's, elite business school, Dad's favorite. Meanwhile, I was the quiet one, staying behind to help Dad while pursuing a computer science degree at a local college. "Ava, you're wasting your potential here," Lauren would say during her visits home from school. "You should aim higher." But I saw something in that little shop that no one else did: potential. While Lauren studied theoretical business models, I was learning how the real world functioned. I was coding, fixing systems, and spotting gaps in the market that others overlooked. In my final year of college, I created our first proprietary software. A simple but effective inventory management tool for small businesses. It wasn't revolutionary, but it was affordable, user-friendly, and addressed a real need. First, Dad was skeptical. But when local businesses began purchasing licenses, his attitude changed. "Maybe you're onto something here, kiddo," he said. For the first time, I saw a flicker of pride in his eyes. That moment meant everything to me. If only I had known how fleeting it would be. Under my leadership, the business began to thrive. I worked 14-hour days, 7 days a week, pouring my heart into its growth. While Lauren climbed the corporate ladder at a top consulting firm in New York, I was building something tangible. Our tiny repair shop evolved into a full-scale software development company, expanding from local clients to national corporations. Mom watched me with quiet worry. "Don't burn yourself out, Ava," she'd say, bringing me dinner at the office. "You need a life outside of this." But I couldn't stop. Maybe part of me was still chasing validation. Maybe I just wanted to prove I could create something of my own. 5 years into our transformation, we hit our first $1 million in annual revenue. That's when Lauren suddenly took an interest in the family business again. She quit her high-profile job and moved back home. At a family dinner, she made her big announcement. "I think it's time I take my rightful place in the company," she said, radiating her trademark confidence. With my business expertise, we could really take things to the next level. Dad practically glowed. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. We could use your professional touch around here." I sat there, fork suspended midair, trying to process what was happening. The company I had built from scratch was suddenly being handed to Lauren like some kind of inheritance. I swallowed my objections and went along with it. Lauren was appointed co-CEO, despite having zero experience in our industry. Dad insisted it would enhance the company's image to have someone with her credentials at the helm. So while I continued managing product development and operations, she took over marketing and investor relations. Over the next 5 years, the business thrived, but so did the tension. I kept developing new software, nurturing client relationships, and improving services. Meanwhile, Lauren crafted her public persona as the company's face. She gave interviews about being a woman in tech, accepted awards for entrepreneurship, and claimed credit for innovations she hadn't contributed to. Our revenue soared to $50 million, but so did the power struggle. Lauren began excluding me from critical meetings and making decisions without consulting me. Step by step, methodically, I was being pushed aside in the very world I had built, until Dad's 60th birthday arrived, the night that would change everything. Of course, the party was Lauren's idea. She booked the grand ballroom at the city's most luxurious hotel and invited all our business contacts. It wasn't really a birthday party, it was a networking event in disguise. That was Lauren's style. Everything had to have a purpose. I got there early to help with the setup, wearing a simple black dress. The moment Lauren saw me, she shot me that familiar disapproving glare. "Couldn't you try harder?" she hissed. "These are important people, Ava." I ignored her and focused on welcoming the guests. The room quickly filled with executives, investors, and family friends. Lauren moved through the crowd like a seasoned politician, shaking hands, flashing her perfectly polished smile. I, as usual, stayed in the background, making sure everything ran without a hitch. Dinner was served, and I finally started to relax, until Lauren tapped her glass for attention. I braced myself for the usual speech. A tribute to Dad, maybe some nostalgic stories. Instead, she dropped a bomb that destroyed everything. As we celebrate Dad's 60th birthday, she began, her voice firm and commanding, I think it's time to announce some changes at Mitchell Tuck. My stomach twisted. Changes? The board has decided that our company needs unified leadership to move forward, she continued, her words cutting through the room like a knife. Board meetings? What board meetings? For too long we've been held back by outdated thinking and resistance to change. Her eyes locked onto mine. That's why, effective immediately, I will be taking over as sole CEO. It's time for certain elements that no longer serve our growth to step aside. A murmur ran through the crowd. I froze as Lauren carried out her corporate execution in front of everyone we knew. Some people, she added, her voice dripping with false concern, are better suited for technical roles than leadership. She was talking about me, humiliating me. My sister Ava has done an adequate job maintaining our legacy systems, she went on. But in today's fast-paced industry, we need vision. We need excellence. And frankly, Ava, you're just not cut out for this level of business. I turned to Dad, silently begging him to defend me, but he just nodded, a proud smile on his face. Mom, meanwhile, kept her gaze on the table, her hands trembling slightly. Lauren wasn't finished. The truth is, she said, her voice rising for effect, Ava, you are worthless in today's business world. Your outdated ideas and lack of formal business training have become a liability. It's time for you to step aside gracefully. The room was suffocatingly silent. Hundreds of eyes were on me, waiting for a reaction. I felt the pity, the judgment, the unspoken agreement with her words. Everything I had worked for, all the late nights, all the sacrifices, was being stripped away in front of everyone. Slowly I stood. My chair scraped across the floor, the sound slicing through the silence like a gunshot. Everyone braced for a scene, tears, a shouting match. Instead, I calmly picked up my purse, walked to Dad's table, and placed a small wrapped package in front of him. Happy birthday, Dad, I said softly, then turned and walked out, my head held high, leaving behind the whispers, the stares, and the sister who thought she had won that night. I settled into my home office, surrounded by awards and patents bearing my name. Lauren believed she had stripped everything from me, but she had overlooked a crucial detail, one that would transform her supposed victory into the biggest mistake of her life. I powered up my laptop, a small smile tugging at my lips. Tomorrow was going to be interesting. After all, there's more than one way to run a successful business, and over the past decade, I had learned far more than Lauren ever would in all her flashy business classes. The next morning, the sun rose bright and clear, and with it, everything was about to change. I arrived at the office early, before anyone else, and waited. At exactly 9 a.m., Lauren strode through the front doors with Dad at her side, both wearing triumphant smiles, smiles that were about to vanish. Ava! Lauren's voice carried surprise mixed with irritation. What are you doing here? I thought after last night you'd have the dignity to stay home. I smiled, recalling the email I'd sent at 3 a.m. to every major client, partner, and employee of Mitchell Tech. Just tying up some loose ends, sister. But since you're here, I guess we should talk about the company's future. There's nothing to discuss, Dad interjected firmly. Lauren's in charge now. The board has already approved it. Ah yes, the board, I said, pulling out my tablet. Let's talk about that. I tapped the screen, and the conference room's main monitor lit up with the document. While Lauren was busy planning parties and giving interviews, I had been building the company, and there were a few things they seemed to have forgotten. I pulled up another document and zoomed in for emphasis. First, let me remind you both that I own 51% of Mitchell Tech's shares. When we incorporated 10 years ago, Dad gave Lauren and me equal shares, 25% each, while keeping 50% for himself. But 3 years ago, when we needed capital to expand, Dad sold me 6% of his shares. Remember that day? Dad, you were too busy attending Lauren's award ceremony to handle the negotiations yourself, so you signed the papers without reading them carefully. Color drained from both their faces. Lauren's perfectly manicured hands gripped the conference table. That's impossible, she whispered. Dad would never. But he did, I interrupted, pulling up another document. And that's not all. I clicked again and the screen filled with legal filings. The core software that generates 80% of our revenue? It isn't owned by Mitchell Tech. It's owned by my separate company, Innovate Solutions LLC. Mitchell Tech only has a licensing agreement which expires. I checked my watch. About 10 minutes ago. Dad sank into a chair, realization dawning on him. The renewal papers, he murmured. The ones you asked me to sign last week. The ones I didn't read because you were too busy helping Lauren plan the party, I finished for him. Yes, those papers. I decided not to submit them. Lauren's face twisted with rage. You underhanded little. Careful, sister, I interrupted smoothly. You might want to hear the rest before you finish that sentence. I clicked again and a flood of emails appeared on the screen. While you were busy celebrating my graceful exit last night, I was sending emails to our clients. You see, most of our major clients have personal loyalty clauses in the contracts they had signed with Mitchell Tech, thanks to my expertise and proven track record, were about to become relevant. Last night, I informed them of the leadership changes and my decision to leave. I zoomed in on my screen, displaying dozens of responses from our biggest accounts. Do you want to know how many have already activated their contract termination clauses? I tilted my head. Or how many of our top developers, who, by the way, are employed by Innovate Solutions, not Mitchell Tech, have already accepted roles at my new venture? Silence. Through the glass walls we could see employees gathering, whispers spreading as they checked their emails. Lauren pulled out her phone frantically, her usual perfect composure cracking as she scrolled. You can't do this, she stammered. You mean I can't take back what's mine? I remained calm. You thought you could just take over because you have an MBA and Dad's approval. You believed you could humiliate me in front of everyone and get away with it. I smoothed my dress, letting the weight of my words sink in. Here are your options. I paused deliberately before continuing. Option 1. I walk away with my shares, my software, my clients, and my employees. Mitchell Tech becomes an empty shell. And you'll have to explain to all those important people you entertained last night why the company's value just dropped to zero overnight. Dad's face looked like it had aged 10 years in 10 minutes. Option 2, he asked weakly. Option 2. You both resign. I took a steady breath, meeting their stunned expressions with an unwavering gaze. I take full control of Mitchell Tech. You both keep your shares as silent partners, receiving dividends but having no voice in operations. Lauren gets a generous severance package and glowing references for her next job, somewhere far away. Lauren's face flushed a remarkable shade of red. You planned this all along, didn't you? You were just waiting for the perfect moment to stab us in the back. I let out a short, humorless laugh. No, Lauren. I spent 10 years trying to be a good daughter, a good sister, while both of you took me for granted. I built this company from nothing while you collected accolades for my work. This isn't planning, it's execution. I checked my watch. About 12 hours ago, after you called me worthless in front of everyone, we knew my phone would buzz with another client termination notice. Time's running out. What's it going to be? The next hour blurred into a frenzy of paperwork and lawyers. By noon, I sat alone in what was now my office, looking out over the city. The company I had built was finally mine, but the victory felt hollow. Family ties. I lay surrounded by ruins, my trust completely broken, like shattered crystal. That evening, Mom came to see me. Her eyes were red from crying. Did it have to end like this? She asked softly. I met her gaze, my voice calm but resolute. They left me no choice. They would have stripped away everything I worked for and discarded me without a second thought. She nodded slowly, a mix of understanding and sorrow in her expression. What happens now? She asked. I turned my laptop toward her, revealing the plans I had already drafted. Expansions, new product lines, innovations I had been holding back. I exhaled, feeling a weight lift from me, lighter than I had in years. Now I could build something even bigger, but this time without carrying those who deemed me worthless. 1 year later, under my leadership alone, Mitchell Tech had tripled in value. Lauren found work at a startup in Silicon Valley, humbled but hopefully wiser. Dad retired, finally realizing that his golden child had nearly ruined his legacy. We see each other at holidays, keeping a polite distance, concealing wounds that may never fully heal. Sometimes late at night, I look at old family photos and feel a pang of sadness for what was lost. Then I remember that birthday party, the disdain on Lauren's face, the way Dad silently agreed with her cruel words, and I remind myself, in both business and family, respect must be earned, not granted. They learned that lesson too late. My story circulated through business circles as a cautionary tale. Never underestimate the wrong person. At industry events, I often overhear whispers, "That's Ava Mitchell." And they never finish the sentence. They don't need to, my success says it all. Last week, I received an invitation to speak at Lauren's business school graduation. The topic, Hidden Strengths and the Power of Underestimated Leaders. I accepted, a small smile playing on my lips, already planning my speech. After all, I have quite a story to share. The company continues to thrive under my guidance, but more importantly, I've found peace with my choices. Sometimes the strongest statement isn't in revenge, it's in proving people wrong. And sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying others. It's rising so high that they can't help but recognize their own errors. Sitting in my office looking over the city, I recall something Mom once told me. Success is the best revenge, but wisdom is knowing when to stop seeking revenge and start seeking growth. She was right. I've moved past revenge. These days I focus on creating something meaningful, something that will endure beyond petty jealousies and family drama. I still keep that wrapped birthday gift I never gave Dad. A photo album chronicling the company's journey from a tiny repair shop to what it is today. Maybe someday when wounds have healed enough, I'll finally give it to him. Until then it sits on my shelf, a quiet reminder that our greatest strengths often come from the very things others underestimate about us.